This is a cell, the basic unit of life. Each of us is made up of them, tens of trillions of them. And now scientists have unlocked the secret of cells.
The future trend for stem cell therapy is extremely bright and extremely exciting.
细胞可以当做一个药物的一个开发，在科学研究上面已经进行了几十年了。
It may be the greatest breakthrough of the century, holding out the promise of an end to disease, regeneration of damaged parts of the body, even an end to aging.
幹細胞っていうのはおそらく長寿長く生きて健康に生きていくために必要な治療法になってくると思います。
And it's just around the corner. According to Harvard professor of genetics David Sinclair, the first person to live to 150 has already been born.
再生医療とはですね、細胞や遺伝子の力を借りて本来今まで治らなかったような疾患を治す画期的な治療法を意味します。
很大的一个困難點就是在怎麼去教導這個機器手背和仿人的一個操作過程。
今まで患者さんにとって辛いとか悲しいっていう将来を感じれなかったものに少し光を差し上げることができる。
But can science back up these hopes? Are we approaching an age of miracle cures? Or is this just one more fable about eternal youth?
.内視鏡で実際見たじゃないですか。で見てここ軟骨ないよねっていうのがもうはっきり分かったからもう一回ちょっと振り返ってこの MRI 見て、患者さんはフラッグフットボールの選手で膝を深く曲げたり伸ばしたりっていうことの多いポジションをやっていて、それを繰り返し動作をやることによって膝蓋骨に軟骨の損傷が生じたと考えられます。
Yuki Sato is one of Japan's premier athletes. She comes to Tokyo because of a problem with her knee that will not get better.
膝が痛くなったのは2022年の5月ぐらいで、曲げづらいなとか正座ができないとか、おそらく軟骨が損傷してるだろうって言われるだけで、やっぱり練習したり試合すると腫れるっていう状態を続けて、そうですね、2023年1年ぐらいずっとその状態続けてました。
軟骨の組織には、血液の流れが来ていないので、治る栄養素の成分が、血液の流れに乗っては膝蓋骨の軟骨のところには来ないんですよね。でなので軟骨の組織がすごく治りづらいっていう理由になっています。
Sato has been playing flag football for her country for some years now.
もともと中学高校まではバスケットボールをしてて、で大学でタッチフットボールっていうのを始めたんですね。その時にフラッグフットボールっていうのがあるよって聞いて、2018年のパナマ大会で初めて日本代表として出場して、自分の特技を生かせるので足が速いとか、すごくキレがあるとかキャッチがうまいとか。
The very things that Sato excels at, sudden changes in speed and direction, have been putting enormous strain on her knees.
やっぱりもうすでに日本代表では最年長なのでやっぱりその上で怪我があるっていうのは不安はすごいありましたし、なのでやっぱ何としても乗り越えたいなと。
In Sato's case, physical therapy has made little difference.
やっぱ怪我した原因は自分の体の使い方が悪くて膝に負担がいってるっていうのがあったので、そこを直してもうちょっと長くいいプレーできるように 頑張りたいなと思って、今はそれを本当にやってます。
次の準特急が先に到着します。この電車は淡路で各駅停車船崎に連絡します。
So she is coming for a consultation with Dr. Shinichiro Iwata. He offers a drastically different yet experimental approach to cartilage repair: stem cell treatment. Originally, we were all stem cells in the womb. These cells can develop into every other kind of cell over time: muscle cells, brain and nerve cells, liver cells, retinal cells. These magical-seeming cells were proposed over a century ago, but were first identified by Canadian researchers Ernest McCulloch and James Till in the 1960s. It was believed that once we finished growing, these stem cells were all used up. But then, McCulloch and Till discovered stem cells still exist in bone marrow in adults.
幹細胞ですね、ご自分のその赤ちゃんのような体をこう作っていくような元になるような細胞になるんですね。ですので投与してあげると体の今現状にある悪い部分を全部潰していってくれて、簡単に言うとその若い時の状態に戻すような巻き戻すようなイメージの治療法です。
In 1998, researchers in the US were able to obtain human stem cell lines for the first time. But from embryos, these cells are the most potent as they are the most adaptable. But this research was highly controversial.
如果你要取得这一些胚胎干细胞，那势必就是从这一些胚胎当作来源来取得特定的细胞来当作胚胎干细胞。就是说这个胚胎怎么来？这个胚胎到底是 abortion 的，就是说流产，还是人为特定，然后去剥削某一些人他的胚胎，然后去损害到生命。
The US and other nations put heavy restrictions on this research, which has slowed down development of stem cell treatments in these countries. Since 2006, scientists have found ways to reprogram adult cells into an embryonic-like state.
再生医療自身がですね、細胞そして遺伝子の力を使って治せない病気を治すという性質上、いろんな新しい技術を組み合わせてさらに進化していくものなんですよね。だからゲノム編集をしてよりこう高い機能を持った細胞ができてくる。それを使った再生医療っていうのはやはり次世代再生医療として非常に大事かなと思っています。
But as with any new treatment, regenerative medicine has to be handled carefully. 10 years ago, Japan introduced laws around regenerative medicine. These were designed to protect patients while at the same time allowing clinical research and treatment.
こういったような法律ができまして、再生医療等製品というある特殊なカテゴリーでの、審査が行われ、そして条件付き早期承認というような、制度ができまして、これらの、技術的なですね、ことが進んだということと同時にそれを支える法的な整備ができたというのがですね、日本が進んだ理由じゃないかなと思っています。
As a result, Japan is a world leader in this new medical technology, and plenty of hopeful people are turning to regenerative medicine for help, which is why Sato has come to Dr. Iwata.
膝の手術を専門に基本的には仕事としていて、だからその時に自分でクリニックを作ってで再生医療をやりながら研究するみたいなことをやって、だから今はそういう関節の再生医療と膝の手術とを専門にやってるっていうスタイルで仕事をしてます。
Soon, the national team for the World Cup will be selected, but Sato won't be able to qualify if she is still carrying this injury. she's doing all the training, but it's slowly becoming clear that something more will be needed.
アスリートが怪我をした後っていうのは今まで積み上げてきたものが一度ゼロになる。でゼロになるどころかもっとマイナスになっているようなイメージで、彼女自身も怪我と向き合いながらどうしても毎度毎度なんですけどジレンマがあってですね、もっとしたいのにできない。
And it's likely to be Sato's last chance to qualify for the national team.
国際試合とかもしこれからも日本代表とかやっていくとしたらやっぱり4日間連続試合とかがあるので、やっぱ耐えられる膝に近づきたいなっていう期待を持ってます。はい。
It seems impossible. Surgery is an option, but with recovery time, Sato would be out of contention for the national team. It's beginning to sound like her career as an athlete is over. But Dr. Iwata believes that stem cells could answer Sato's prayers. It's a novel therapy with no guaranteed outcome, but it offers Sato hope. Yuki Sato, star flag football player for Japan, has come to Tokyo for a radical new treatment for a knee injury.
2023年の5月に手術してもらって、多分見立ては軟骨損傷で7ヶ月ぐらい経ったんですけど、結構良くなったんですけど、やっぱり練習後膝が腫れるっていうのは治んなくて、それを岩田先生に相談すると、で再生医療の話を教えてもらって、すごい興味を持ってたと。
She is going to undergo autologous stem cell therapy, which in essence means treatment with the patient's own stem cells.
佐藤さんの組織取らせてもらって、そこの中にいる幹細胞っていうのを取り出して、それを今度培養って言って増やすっていう作業をしますと。今回は1億まで増やす。それから細胞をどこから取るかっていう話ですけど、これは東京の大学で研究をしているもうデータがあって、どこの組織から取った幹細胞が一番軟骨を作るのに適しているかっていうもうデータがあるんですよね。膝の関節の中にある滑膜っていう組織にいる幹細胞が一番適している。
Sato's cell sample comes down the corridor to another part of the building, into the lab. Any cells that aren't put into culture to grow will be kept ultra cold in liquid nitrogen in case they are needed later. Among all the trillions of cells in the body, only a tiny fraction, perhaps a few 100 million, are stem cells. These have to be extracted from the sample so they can be cultivated and multiply. It's a complex process. Tissue is cut into small pieces and adhered evenly over the walls of a culture flask.
Culture medium is added to promote growth and replication of the stem cells.
The medium is full of the nutrients that cells need to grow. The technician checks the condition of the cells before the flask is set aside. To develop, it's placed in an incubator at 37 degrees Celsius, average human body temperature.
培養の時のコツなんですけども、もともと幹細胞って体の中にありますので、できるだけいろんな刺激を加えずに体の中と同じような状況を維持してあげる。そうすることによって幹細胞が安心して数が増えていく。
The cells are moved to a larger flask as their number increases. The cells are checked regularly.
So first we take a small amount of the cells and add a dye called trypan blue that indicates whether a cell is dead or alive. So from this mixture, we transfer them into a slide and insert it into a cell counter where we can determine the cell number and the percentage of the cell population which are alive. So from there, we obtain the numbers and we can confirm the number of cells through this equipment.
After 4 weeks of cultivation, enough stem cells have been grown. And Sato's treatment is ready. The stem cells will be introduced into her body.
今日は膝に注射するのでちょっと緊張してます。
そこにその幹細胞とか成長因子とかヒアルロン酸とかこの辺をこう一緒に混ぜたものをその悪いところに流し込む形で注射をしてで、それがうまくこう定着して新しい軟骨ができてくれるのが一番治りとしてはいいパターンかなって思ってたんです。で幹細胞は軟骨細胞に変化をしていってでこの軟骨細胞がコラーゲンとかを生成することによって損傷した軟骨を修復していきます。
Now, Sato will have to wait and see if her treatment has been successful. It's a worrying time.
でも今回は本当に再生させたいっていうところを目指す。本当になるかわかんないけど目指す。
干细胞的一个治疗哈，那它毕竟是用活体的一个细胞打入人体。事实上，我们以现在的科技，我们很难去后续的一个追踪，我们只能看到最后的 outcome。
Success is far from guaranteed. One of the biggest challenges and one of the big hopes for stem cell therapies is treating chronic diseases. With its aging population, Japan is at the forefront of research and has been one of the first nations to offer treatments to the public.
当院ではその取り組んでいるのがまずその糖尿病だったりだとか、高脂血症、高血圧、そういったような成人習慣病ですね。でこれらの病気は患者さんの数がやっぱり非常に多いです。アジアでもやっぱり糖尿病なんか非常に増えてます。
Singapore faces similar problems to Japan. And Edwin Ko, a successful businessman, has one of these chronic diseases at a relatively early age.
I used to be a very fit guy. I was diagnosed to have diabetes when I was 43 years old. I wasn't surprised that I'll get diabetes because my family doctors say that my grandparents, they are diabetic, and my parents, they are both diabetic. So I cannot escape from it because it's hereditary. I also have fatty liver. So it wasn't really good. My doctor told me that there's no cure for diabetes and fatty liver. I just have to take medicine for the rest of my life.
Type 2 diabetes is an illness in part caused by modern life. A sedentary life and excess weight around the abdomen, as well as a diet with too many processed foods and too much sugar, all contribute. For Edwin, the genetic factor also counts against him, even though he tries to compensate through his lifestyle.
He's a very active person. He loves to exercise, but he seems to be putting on weight year after year.
Edwin remains a fitness fanatic, so it was almost inevitable that one of his exercise buddies would suggest an extreme challenge, a half Ironman triathlon. This race covers a distance of over 100 kilometers, with running, a bike race, and a swimming race, all long distance. It involves flat-out physical exertion for up to 8 hours.
And I completed my half Ironman in 2022. My group of friends suggested that we do a full Ironman the following year. It's an impossible task, but I still give it a try. Stick to a training plan. So Tuesday to Sunday, I have to train on the average 2 hours per day.
But his hopes of keeping his diabetes in check through exercise and healthy eating haven't been paying off.
Because he doesn't really sleep well at night, so in the day he's lethargic, and most of the times he will doze off in the middle of the day or after meals.
With all this, Edwin still hopes to come off his medication, so he's been looking at some new treatments.
My friend told me about stem cell therapy, that the stem cell therapy can actually rejuvenate my body and also maybe repair my organs and also slow down aging. After some consideration, I decided to go ahead and give it a try.
So he's made the trip to Japan where he can get this treatment. Dr. Nana Kobayashi is overseeing Edwin's care.
はい、よろしくお願いいたします。こんにちは。で、本日ですね、幹細胞の投与ということでご準備しております。ご体調は問題ないでしょうか。
The idea is simple. We are made up of cells. So when we are ill, our cells are flawed. Stem cell treatment sets out to put them right.
We have to understand our own cells. And by understanding our own cells, we then understand processes, for example, related to aging and poor health. Many diseases are driven by inflammation. And therefore, I think that regenerative medicine can use all of this learning in order to generate cures or reverse the process.
In a body without diabetes, cells in the pancreas produce insulin, which enables the cells in our body to take in glucose, which gives us energy. It does this by binding to the insulin receptor on the cell, opening the gateway for the glucose to enter. In type 2 diabetes, the cell resists insulin and can't absorb glucose, so the body can end up overproducing insulin, yet unable to control the rapid rise in blood sugar, and the pancreas can suffer damage as well. In other words, diabetes is a cellular disease, and that means it could be helped by stem cell therapy.
一応その幹細胞が体の中に入ってくると、投与するとですね、全身を回って幹細胞自体が傷ついている細胞です、組織、あと炎症を起こしているところをこうサーチ、いわゆるホーミング効果というんですけど、そこで感知して、そして治していく、修復していくという形にはなります。
They do this with the help of exosomes, microscopic particles that help cells to communicate with one another.
干细胞在我们身体里面是少数的，它会分泌很多的所谓的外泌体来去做远端或大量的范围或专一性的把特定的生物分子透过外泌体带到特定的地方或者说不同的地方，来影响到后面的所谓的再生跟修复。
How often do I need to come to do stem cell therapy?
お体の状態を見ながら、やはり1、2年ごとですかねに投与をさせていただくというのが一番いいかもしれません。
Edwin decides to go ahead, and a sample of his skin and fat are taken so that his stem cells can be cultivated. Growing stem cells is a very delicate business, and the same protocols have to be observed as when dealing with infectious diseases to keep the cells protected.
培養の方法を間違うといろいろな問題が出てきます。例えば細菌の混入、微生物やウイルスの混入などが挙げられます。そうなってしまっては培養細胞としては破棄しなければいけません。あとは機能の維持になってます。機能の維持ができていないと投与しても効果が期待できないため、培養としてはもう一番重要なところになっています。
Back in Japan, weeks later, Edwin gets to see his cells in the lab. This small container holds 2 billion stem cells and his hopes for his future health. Time for his infusion.
幹細胞は膵臓細胞からの救援信号を受け取り、血流に沿って膵臓近くに到達し、血管壁を通って膵臓に到達します。幹細胞はエクソソームを分泌し、サイトカインや成長因子を提供して、損傷した膵臓のベータ細胞を修復し、炎症状態を軽減します。同時に一部の幹細胞は iPSC 細胞、インスリン分泌細胞に分化し始めます。しばらくするとベータ細胞と iPSC 細胞は正常に機能し、インスリンを生成します。幹細胞はエクソソームを分泌し、メッセンジャー RNA の伝達を通じてインスリン受容体の生成プロセスを修正します。インスリン産生の向上とインスリン受容体の修復により、血液中の血糖値は徐々に低下し、正常範囲に戻ります。
That's the theory, but will it help Edwin in practice? Regenerative medicine using the patient's own stem cells holds tremendous promise for treating chronic illnesses, but it's the equivalent of a made-to-measure suit, expensive and not for everyone. What future medicine needs is something off the shelf. Dr. Han Kan Yip has been fighting disease for over 30 years. The focus of his clinical research at the university just outside Taipei has been on techniques using stem cells.
我们心导管的时候，比如说左边的冠状动脉堵塞，那我们有管子就直接进到这个所谓的冠状动脉里面，然后我们利用干细胞就打到冠状动脉。
But Professor Yip needs a steady supply of stable, high-quality stem cells for his research. So he has come here to ITRI, the Industrial Technology Research Institute. It's Taiwan's high-flying answer to MIT in the US. It's where the cutting-edge research is done. The team here are looking to use donated cells, usually from bone marrow, which is where most of an adult's remaining stem cells are to be found. These are known as mesenchymal cells.
So in the regenerative medicine area, we're actually focusing on developing stem cell for treating specific diseases. For example, we are using mesenchymal stem cell to treat patients with the cardiovascular problem as well as for diabetic-related tissue injury or damage.
そして今の再生医療ってまだまだ実験段階ですので非常に少人数に対して投与してそれが効いたというところが示せてきたところなんですけどこれをですね一旦承認されて非常に多くの人にこれ投与しなきゃいけないということはですねこれをいわゆる大量製造するということが必要になります。
The most important task is to identify the best stem cell donors. Not all stem cells are equal. Super stem cells can match the widest range of patients, and only a proportion of donors can provide them.
结果已经分析出来了。
Donor 1到 Donor 7的7个来源，红色的话就表示说它是表现非常高。
This being ITRI, they have come up with a technological solution for Professor Yip.
像是这个红色的部分的话，就表示它在这个血管新生有很强的能力。
Once the cells have been identified, they need to be cultured. But manual cultivation can be hit or miss, and it's very labor-intensive. With cardiovascular disease affecting so many people and insufficient organ donor supply, there is an urgent need to reproduce the cells in bulk and reliably to conform to standard. To do this, an automated system is what they're looking to produce. Of course, it's far from easy.
在开发这个自动化系统的时候，很大的一个困难点就是在怎么去教导这个机器手背，那可以去像仿人的一个操作过程，然后将这个连系带的这个部分都已经是纳入在这个机器手背的这个操作当中，不只是一个机械性的一个动作，它还要结合软体的一个开发，然后还有一些系统性整体而言去搭配。
我们第一次跟生医接触的时候，我们第一个挑战就是他们讲的名词我们听不懂，专业术语完全没有办法沟通。
The engineers are trying to replicate the work of highly skilled technicians at scale. So to say it's a challenge is an understatement.
所以您刚讲的是，我们这些东西都是到无菌区里面才打开了。
对，这样子其实就会容易有扬尘，扬尘也很容易就会导致这个污染。
不要接触就对。细胞培养的团队培养大概2年，他有办法完整很熟练的去操作这些事情。他其实很多技巧是需要training的，但是对我们来讲，他带过的时候，我们没有办法接受到他那些 information， 所以我们必须要跟随他们。把整个 process 把它拆解成分解动作。
Under test, this box unit. The aim is for it to become a one-stop super stem cell factory to produce them in bulk for patients.
现在已经培养3天了，大概是5分满。
A primary task for the unit is to change the culture solution in which the cells are growing. In a completely sterile environment, everything is left to the robot arm. The bulk of the used culture medium is poured into a waste container. nothing can be spilt for fear of contamination. In a gesture that recognizably imitates human movements, the robot shakes the flask to ensure every drop is removed. Now it pours in fresh culture medium. Then, very gently, the flask is repeatedly tilted. There are a number of parallel layers inside to which the cells are adhering, and they all need their fair share of the fresh solution. In future, such robots will be able to work 24 hours a day, caring for far more cells than any human technician. In less than a month, the factory cells will be ready, at this stage, for delivery to Professor Yip for his trials.
把人的骨髓间质干细胞从工研院分发出来，那我们就用在临床的试验里面目前做了一个病人，那这个病人已经追踪1年了，情况都非常良好。
大量製造することによって、価格も下げることができると思いますので、そういうことにすると、いろんな人がですね、気軽に使える医療になっていくのではないかと期待しているところです。
For many years, Japan has famously been home to many of the oldest people in the world. So it has the most experience dealing with a population that is getting older, but not necessarily healthier. Kiichi Oya is one such older person. At just 73 years of age, he is old beyond his years. A terrible disease is taking its toll. Mr. Oya first showed signs of something not being right about 4 years ago.
症状が一番きついのはやっぱりよく転ぶ、後ろを向いてそれもね、でこう回転ができないんですよね。それと喋れない、うまいこと。
Mr. Oya is increasingly reliant on his wife and family for all his daily needs.
それとやっぱり歩くんが、今年ぐらいからやっぱり車椅子と両方で歩くのは大体そうですね、50メーターぐらい歩いて疲れてきたら車椅子に乗るっていう感じですね。で去年ぐらいまでは杖2本で歩いてたんですけどね。
At first, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but the treatments did not go well. After more tests, the diagnosis was amended to progressive supranuclear palsy, shortened to PSP. It's a degenerative condition of the nerve cells, and there's no cure. As the disease progresses, Mr. Oya has increasing problems with his balance, with speech, and with swallowing. And it's even difficult to control the movement of his eyes. Even though life is very difficult, it still holds pleasures.
40年ぐらいになりますね。テレビの番組から深夜番組で歌の番組があって、中村美律子さんの出てる。でそれで中村美律子さんの歌が好きになって、それでそこからファンになったんですけどね。
Regular physiotherapy can help slow down the inevitable deterioration caused by this disease. It's thought that worldwide there may be around 400,000 cases of PSP, but what sets it off in the first place is still unknown. After hearing about stem cell therapy, the Oyas have come to Tokyo from their Osaka home to seek treatment.
そのいわゆる脱落してしまったとか変性してしまった、神経細胞を再生する、または、 やはりこう反応が乏しくなっている、受容体を少し元気にすることが幹細胞ができるかもしれないという観点が一つです。もう一つはやはり免疫力を上げるとか体力を上げるっていうのがやはりその今回ご本人様があったようなやはり誤嚥だったりとか夜肺炎だったりとかそういうものをケアすることができる。
Despite the uncertainty about what stem cell therapy might do, if anything, in the face of the inescapable progression of the disease, the Oyas have decided to go ahead with the treatment.
だから幹細胞はいいと思いますけどね、やっぱりまだ他にも気づかなかったんですけど、多分こう進行性やからずっと進んでいくんじゃない病気ってね、それがちょっとマシかなとは思うんですけどね。
The theory goes that the exosomes produced by the stem cells are key. Exosomes are the communication system used by cells, and they can help other treatments target the affected areas.
那神经退化性疾病事实上有很多的因素是它的神经元周遭的环境开始变坏，所以这些外泌体似乎也有能力把这整个细胞周边的环境把它改善，所以呢，神经细胞它就慢慢恢复它的活力。
And so Mr. Oya receives the treatment. He and his family are hoping for even the slightest improvement in the course of this dreadful disease. Some months after Mr. Oya's stem cell treatment, he and his family are cautiously optimistic.
今のところトイレも行けてるし、お風呂もちょっと入って出入りする時は私もついていくんで、あとはもう自分で多少洗ったりしてますけどね、頭洗ったり。
そういう前の時にはなかなかちょっと歩くのも難しくて、お話をしてもこう首を動かすのができるかできないかぐらいの方が、1回目トーナーといらっしゃった時には「はい」とかですね、体を動かすとか手を動かすっていうそういうことができるようになったので。なので、今までのずっと継続していた治療に幹細胞を加えたことによって、効果が出たのかなというふうに考えています。
本日ですね、幹細胞を治療させていただいて、少しでもやっぱり体力とあと免疫力も高いです。
そうですね。咳がもうほとんどしなくなる。だからもうずっと朝まで夜もうずっと単関係なくね、咳がしてたんです。それはちょっと。
It is still too soon to tell whether the treatment will be of lasting benefit to Mr. Oya, or even if it is of any true help at all. However, when faced with such a debilitating disease, it is at least a hope. A month after her treatment, athlete Yuki Sato's back in training.
今回は本当最初すごい腫れてたんですけど、そこからの腫れが収まって1週間後ぐらいから急に治った感じがしてきてわかんないんですけど、すごい調子はいいかなって思ってます今。
もともともちろんその軟骨を再生させたいっていうのが最終目標でこの治療をやってはいるんですけど、その10人やっても、1人いるかいないかぐらいの確率でしか軟骨ってなかなかできてこないっていうのがあって、だからちょっと佐藤さんの場合もできるかなどうかなっていうのは僕自身もそんな確信を持ってやってたわけじゃないんですけど。
Back in Tokyo, Sato was hearing about the results from an MRI.
でも結果的にはすごくいい形で軟骨が再生しているので、厚みもかなりあるので、すごくいい状況だと思います。
It's something her trainers have observed as well.
幹細胞の注射を打った後はどんどん痛みも取れて違和感もなくなってきて、でリハビリもどんどん進んでいますので、もっともっと彼女はアスリートとして上を目指すべきだと思うので、来年のワールドカップ日本代表を目指して頑張ってほしいと思ってます。
And Sato herself is more hopeful than she has been for some while. Now she is back to competing for her place on the national team and not battling her own body.
100% ではないですけど、でもやりたかったレベルは最低限できたかなと思ってます。ちょっとだけ膝はまだ痛いんですけど、でもここ1ヶ月の中ではすごく思い切り走れましたし、思い切り踏んだり地面踏んで走れたので良かったかなと。あとやっぱりもう一歩そのマンツーマンディフェンスに対して一歩競り勝つとか、もっと早く切り返すとか、まだまだ目指すところはあるんですけど、少しずつそこに近づいていけた練習だったかなと思います。
Back in Singapore, Edwin continues his triathlon training, and he is off his diabetes medication.
You can see the improvement in him, especially in his fitness. He started to slim down, he lost weight, and we were surprised.
I'm very proud of him for taking charge of his health and doing all he can to improve his health condition.
幹細胞をですね投与した後は、ヘモグロビン A1C が 5.9 というふうにですねもう正常値になっております。でその状況があってご本人様ですね内服を終了し、もちろん運動療法食事療法は継続していただいているんですけども、この状況で維持していると伺っております。
For myself, I did it through diet, exercise, and with the help of all the treatments. I have a new lease of life after doing all this.
Researchers involved in clinical testing are cautious but also optimistic about what stem cell therapies can achieve.
干细胞的是其他传统方面没有办法解决的话，那么拿来做另外一种辅助性的治疗的方向。
One of these conditions might even be aging itself.
病気ではないけどちょっと悪いっていう状態が体中に存在します。でそれを取り除いてあげると健康な若い時の体の臓器の状態で長生きできますので、そういう予防医学としての効果も非常に高いと思ってます。
But obtaining reliable evidence is hard, not least because traditional medical testing requires objective, repeatable results, which tailored therapies using a patient's own stem cells can't provide.
Of course, there are specific reasons why stem cell therapy is hard to test in clinical trials, and so the advancement of scientific knowledge will improve, but I'm not sure we can expect it to be very fast in the near future.
It is still too early to say whether stem cell therapy is effective. Anecdotal evidence suggests that it is, but we still know too little about what is happening to make claims for any of these treatments. But if it lives up to its promises, these are the pioneers, and we may be witnesses to the greatest medical breakthrough of our lives.